This is a 1970 Mazda Cosmo, and it is a shame that this car is so often overlooked in automotive history. And that is because the Cosmo was Mazda's first attempt at putting a Wankel or a rotary engine into a production car. Now, if you don't know how a rotary engine works, rather than using a series of cylinders, valves, and pistons the way a typical internal combustion engine works, a rotary engine uses magical spinning triangles surrounded by explosions in order to power the wheels. The rotary engine became a standout feature in Mazda's performance vehicles with the RX-7, the RX-8, and even the 787B, which became the first Japanese-built vehicle to win overall at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it all started from this car right here. Toyota has the 2000 GT, Nissan has the Hakosuka GTR, and Mazda has the Cosmo, which I think should be held in just as high of a regard as the rest of them. Now, Cosmos have always been rare, with fewer than 1,200 ever built and less than 10 or so ever originally imported into the United States. A few have made their way into the States over the last few years as they started to gain a little bit of popularity, but they're still incredibly hard to come by. They are so hard to come by that in my 15 or so years of being around vintage or collector cars, this is my first time seeing a Cosmo, so needless to say, I was really excited when I first laid eyes on it.
First Cosmo. Holy
This is sweet. It is a very uniquely designed two-seater sports car from Japan with a brand new type of engine in it, and it is just absolutely fantastic, but no one really seems to know much about these things. There are so few videos out there and information is sparse on the internet about them. So when I learned that there was one in the United States that I could take a look at and really show you around, I hopped on the opportunity. So today I'm going to show you around what makes this car so special and unique, and then we're going to take it out on the road and see just what the first Japanese rotary sports car was really like. I'm borrowing this Mazda Cosmo from the Tampa Bay Automobile Museum, who have it on permanent display as part of their collection of uniquely engineered and often overlooked vehicles of automotive history. They have a wonderful assortment of cars that tell the stories of some amazing people, so if you're in the Southwest Florida area and you want to see these cars in person, be sure to check them out. Now, although it was close, the Cosmo was not the very first car to be offered to the public with a rotary engine. That title goes to NSU, which basically footed the bill for Wankel to develop the rotary engine when they released their Spider, which was a single rotor variant, and then the Row 80, which was a dual rotor variant. However, these cars didn't quite fix the apex seal problem and needed to be rebuilt after about 80,000 kilometers, so they weren't really the best cars for longevity. And if you don't know, the apex seals are what separate the combustion chambers inside the engine, so they're pretty important and they have to stand up to a lot of stress. However, that's where Mazda came in with the Cosmo and actually fixed this apex seal problem by using graphite aluminum alloys in order to make the apex seals more durable and fit for longer use. Actually, to the point of where this Cosmo still has its original apex seals, which is honestly amazing. NSU was phased out as a company when they were purchased as Audi, but Mazda kept the rotary going, and that's why they are so associated with the rotary engine today. Looking under the hood, you will find the 0813 dual rotor L10B engine that produced 128 horsepower and 103 pound-feet of torque when new. This engine was only 982 cc's as Japan placed additional taxes on vehicles over a 1-liter displacement at the time. Inside the engine bay, you'll find a large air cleaner, dual distributors for each rotor of the engine, and an air compressor for the Cosmo's interior climate control. Now, this is a Series 2 Cosmo, which cost roughly 1.5 million yen when it was new, or roughly $160,000 today. Being a Series 2 car, there were about 833 ever made, and on the Series 2 versus the Series 1, they lengthened the wheelbase by about 6 inches in order to give the interior cabin a little bit more room. They increased power out of the engine, they put bigger tires on here, and they really made it a more usable sports car. Looking at the design, a lot of people give a mix of, okay, maybe it's Alfa Romeo in the front or it's Series 1 Thunderbird in the back, but really, it's a Cosmo. It really can't be mistaken for much else. It is this wonderful assortment of both straight and rounded lines on it that just looks fantastic, from the covered headlights to the fender-mounted mirrors to the louvers behind the wheels and the straight fender lines. It has a very usable trunk with a full-size spare in the back along with tools. On the front, you have chrome bumpers, fender flares, solid shoulder lines on it. It is a fantastic looking car, especially for the era that it came out of. And Mazda really wanted to get the point home that they were using a rotary engine in this car because all of the Mazda logos on it are in the shape of a rouleau triangle, which is the shape of the rotor inside of the engine. Looking around the Cosmo, a few odd things of note include the multiple louvers inside of the headlights for ventilation, as well as inside this vent on the B-pillar. Behind the rear glass of the cabin, you'll see the gas cap is all the way in the center of the car, meaning you have to clear several feet of bodywork when trying to fill up. And inside the trunk, you'll see some exposed draining tubing to dump any water you might pick up on the road. Underneath the car, you'll find a leaf spring Dion tube suspension and drum brakes for the rear wheels, and a coil spring double wishbone suspension with disc brakes at the front. Now, of course, being built for the Japanese domestic market, the Cosmo is right-hand drive, and as much as I love this car, it was sadly not built for someone my size. It is a fairly small sports car, so when you actually want to get inside it, it is a bit of a struggle for someone my size. So if you get in, you fall into the seat a bit, try and get your legs around the wooden steering wheel, and then naggle yourself inside. Once you're in, it's a really cool view. All right, so now we are inside the Cosmo, and it is a very tight fit. Definitely not too much headroom, and don't expect to be wearing a helmet. But from the driver's seat, you have this amazing Nardi style steering wheel with drilled out supports for weight saving. You have the Mazda logo with the rotor shape around it, the rouleau triangle. Main gauges right in front of you are your speedometer and kilometers per hour on your left, and then your tachometer to your center right, with a red line right around 6,500 to 7,000 RPM. Besides that, you have your oil temperature and your water temperature, along with your ignition on the right, so you can shift into first gear on your left. It's a sports car, remember. You have your main headlight switch over here, as well as a switch for your overall cluster lights. Looking over to your left, you have your hazards, you have your fog lights, you have overall tone for your radio, you have your actual 8-track radio with buttons to skip through your tracks. So other gauges include an ampere meter, your fuel gauge, a mechanical clock, and actually a little dome light right here, which is really cool. Then down below you have your defrost, you have your recycled or your fresh air, you can close or shut your AC vents, you have a cigarette lighter as well as a choke, your horn, funny enough, and then a little ashtray down below. As we continue down, you have your gear shift for your 5-speed transmission, 4 gears, and then overdrive as well as reverse. You have a huge handbrake on the transmission tunnel, which hits your side. You have a little space right in here for a little bit of storage. And actually, if we look back, you can see there are a couple of Japanese coins in here. Super cool. As you look back, you can actually see this car has full AC with a whole bunch of vents right behind you. No vents I can see on the front dash. But you've got all of these right here, and actually an 8-track tape player down here in the passenger footwell. And then over on the passenger side, you do have a glove box with a good little bit of storage. There's a couple of things in here, but not too much room, besides maybe little gloves for your drive. You have these black semi-bucket sports seats, and as far as I can tell, most Cosmos did come with this houndstooth interior insert. However, this car in particular apparently had its inserts ripped when the current owner took ownership of the car, so he had them replaced. But overall, just about everything else on this car is original. You of course have your roll-up and down windows, which are fantastic, and you have these little corner windows for a little extra air. Your pedals are pretty offset to the right, with your clutch basically in the middle, and then your brake on the right, and then your gas on the far right of the footwell, so you're really having to slant yourself sideways to really hit all the pedals here. No seatbelt warning or mirror on the flap down, so only to block a little bit of sun here. A great rear view mirror with a ton of visibility out of the back. You have your AC, your battery is behind the passenger seats, and then you have a little quilted leather shelf on the back, but I wouldn't expect to put too much back there. But overall, it's a pretty no-frills sports car, but this one does come with AC and an 8-track, so pretty high tech for the time, and it's just, fabulous. If you want to open the door, there's a little handle underneath the armrest here that you pull upwards, and that will open for you. And they even have a little metal guard right here, so when you're getting out, you don't scrape your foot against any leather. That's pretty smart.
Some other interesting things around the interior include having the air conditioning controls underneath the steering wheel, so your passenger really gets no say in the temperature. Then below that, in the driver's footwell, there is your hood release and a lever you pull to open up a vent from the engine bay, which I'm guessing is for getting some extra airflow onto the driver's feet. On the seatbelts, you'll find these cool retractable mechanisms to help get some extra material in there for your bigger drivers, and on the shelf behind the seats, you'll find a pair of stereo speakers for playing your favorite hits from the 60s or 70s. This Cosmo really has been kept in wonderful condition without an ounce of rust to be found on the rocker panels, and everything seems to fit together really well. But now let's start her up and see just how well she does on the road.
All right, so we're in the Mazda Cosmo, about to take it for a drive.
My name's Andrew Kinworthy. I work for the Tampa Bay Automobile Museum.
And he is going to take us for a drive in this piece of absolute history. So how do you start this car up?
Basically, you're going to turn the key on, make sure your emergency brake's set. And you're going to push the clutch in. You're going to pull the choke lever. And then you're going to start it, maybe give it a couple pumps of gas. Ready to drive?
I think we are ready.
Release the emergency brake.
First gear. And off we go. So no power steering, but it's a pretty light, nimble car.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty nimble.
able to get around.
Pretty easy to steer.
Oh, she likes to move. This is fantastic.
Yeah, that thing runs awesome.
Oh, this is wonderful. The visibility is fantastic. You see so much out of it. That sound, oh, it's just wonderful. You get the great mix of a vintage car and the connectedness of it, but you get the sound of a rotary engine, which typically, okay, most people only associate with once you get to the 80s and 90s. So this is such a wonderful mix of a car.
It really handles, you know, I think exceptionally well for a small car compared to, because it doesn't have a little small wheel. You know, this car has pretty good tall tires for a small car.
Yeah.
And it really pays a difference in the way that it handles. Because it doesn't have any body roll whatsoever. It's the most funnest car in the drive museum, as far as being sporty, you know what I mean?
And everything in the museum runs and drives. Right?
Yep, correct. And they drive everything in there. At a moment's notice, they can pull anything off the floor.
Hearing the brap of a rotary engine from a 1970s car, smooth power delivery, it makes me smile. I love it so much.
Yeah, one of my first cars I had was a rotary Mazda RX-7.
Really?
Yeah.
So how's it feel getting to drive where that came from?
Well, it was nothing compared to my RX-7 because I put a big old turbo up, a Cummins diesel on it. So unfortunately, it had too much turbo lag, so it really didn't. I mean, it didn't work good until you had it got spooled up. But it was a fun car to drive.
All right, and that was a ride in the absolutely magnificent Mazda Cosmo. It is this wonderful vintage Bravo rotary sports car that lives up to every expectation I could have hoped for. If you really want to see this car, please come check out the Tampa Bay Automobile Museum and come see it in person. It is wonderful, it's gorgeous, and it's going to be real hard to find anything like it. So thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.